Peace and prosperity. Welcome to the Awareness channel. Hope you find this information useful. Happy watching.
The Doctrine of the Kingdom of God.
Biblical experts agree that the main message delivered by Jesus was good news or the gospel about the nearness of the kingdom of God. Namely the revival of Jerusalem and prophesied by the prophets of the children of Israel. The early Christians are said to be the first group. Using nouns, which means good news or happy news. The good news. Jesus did this as a way to emphasize the content of the message of his preaching to his oppressed nation. Something is called news when it is related to a new event, an event that recently occurred or an event that is believed to occur in the not-too-distant future,
or in the near future. Likewise, news is called good news if the news provides encouragement, or hope and courage and make the listener happy.
God's gospel preached by Jesus is in order to give hope, courage and joy to the nation of Israel.
The kingdom of God will come soon. This good news is the main message from Jesus.
Jesus offered an event in the future that would be a blessing for the oppressed Israelites and the poor or slaves in his own land. So the prophecy about the coming of the kingdom of God is news that brings the aroma of liberation to them.
In fact, this was confirmed by him. You are the one who owns the kingdom of God.
This happy word is reserved for those who are poor and hungry,
both materially and spiritually. Poverty, hunger, and crying are basic symbols of life's suffering. And this happens in the midst of hedonistic power, or the Roman Empire at that time, which is the devil's kingdom, the enemy of God's kingdom.
But that doesn't mean anything. Those who are not poor, are not hungry, and do not cry, are not happy with the prophecy of the gospel, because they remain poor in God's love,
hungry and thirsty for true justice. And they are also sad and depressed by the tyranny, rulers, and Jewish scholars.
Many of them had to be criticized and persecuted because of their faith in Jesus,
both from family, religious councils, and authorities.
In the New Testament Bible published by the Indonesian Bible Institute, at least the discussion of the kingdom of God is contained in 68 verses.
Starting from the Gospel of Matthew to 2 marriage salon tests.
Meanwhile, the word kingdom of heaven, which has the same meaning, is repeated in 34 verses.
All of which is contained in the Gospel of Matthew.
This is also interesting to research because the other Gospels do not use this term.
Although no less than 44 verses are studied to prove the thesis of the kingdom of God fought for by the Messiah. Jesus is the historical and political kingdom of God, thus undermining the Church's doctrine about the meaning of the heavenly theological kingdom. This thing is
valid because our new covenant or gospel is the fulfillment of the prophecies of the prophets of the children of Israel. From Jeremiah to John the Baptist, although angel theorists agreed that the main message of Jesus was the coming of the kingdom of God in the near future, they did not agree. What is actually meant by the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven? One of the causes of this difference in understanding is because Jesus himself did not provide a clear definition of the meaning of the kingdom of God.
In the Bible, in other words, Jesus the Messiah uses the language of wisdom in explaining it so that only those who are intelligent understand it. Some biblical interpreters identify the kingdom of God with heaven, and the future life is full of peace and happiness. Or ontology. Church of the human heart, social order, moral concept.
This discourse on the kingdom of God has become a topic of discussion in several inner circles.
Time. Last 2 centuries.
Especially for toilets or reformist Christologists.
This discussion is then clear.
Explained in this explanation. Jesus prophesied that the coming of the kingdom of God would be preceded by an eschatological apocalyptic event.
In the near future. For example,
destruction of the synagogue in Jerusalem. The sun will no longer shine, the moon will no longer shine, the stars will fall, wars between nations, famines, wars and earthquakes will occur. This dramatic event will happen before the coming of the kingdom of God.
In conclusion, the kingdom of God refers to a political kingdom or a golden age for the repentant Israelites. It existed as a theocratic power in Jerusalem. From several of Jesus' preachings about the kingdom of God, it is clear that what is meant by the kingdom of God is a factual worldly kingdom,
not some abstract heavenly kingdom. A kingdom in the form of a place or country where they can enter to sit, drink and eat together and even become judges for the 12 tribes of Israel. God's kingdom that is not technological. This is also reinforced by Jesus' confirmation to his disciples that among them they will still see with their physical eyes the coming of the kingdom. With the arrival of God's worldly kingdom, it will practically eliminate Roman rule over Palestine. As a consequence, Jesus was considered a rebel by the Roman authorities. This indication is reflected in the 4 canonical Gospels of Matthew, Luke, Mark and John, which tell the story of Jesus' crucifixion on charges of being a Jew.
Who claims to have the throne?
This also undermines the doctrine of the kingdom of God from an eschatological apocalyptic perspective that will occur at the end of human history.
Thank you for your attention and likes. Feel free to ask any questions regarding this latest information. By subscribing, you will not miss any other information.